Hey there and welcome back to another My Hero Academia Season 7 video. And today we're going to be talking about the latest episode to drop, A Chain of Events Across the Ages, which picks up from where the last episode left off, with Deku arriving at the coffin in the sky and kicking Shigaraki's head in. Yeah, and that was hype. Really, the whole last episode was hype. The whole season has been. I'm loving this big war arc. And yeah, before we go any further, I would like to say that whilst I have read the manga, it's pretty much all faded out of my head. And the last thing I legitimately remember was Bakugo getting killed, so we're pretty much flying blind. And so with all that being said, let's jump into the episode. Okay, so we start off the episode with a significant amount of recap in the cold open, like over 2 minutes. And that's a lot. But I guess there was a lot to remind us of, since there's so many battles that are ongoing, and then there was a brief gap between the episodes. We then have the intro, and then it's finally into the episode, where we see what Deku was actually doing whilst the battle was ongoing. We see that sequence where the first user gives him a warning of something bad going down, with Deku then seeing something in the distance. And initially, when they first showed this a few episodes ago, I kind of assumed it was just going to be the outline of the coffin in the sky that Deku couldn't fully see yet, but nope, it's actually the flight crew from the US that had come along with Star to fight Shigaraki at the start of the season. And that feels like ages ago now. And yeah, these guys are Chads. They've gone rogue and they're disobeying orders to retreat in order to stay in Japan and help with the war effort. And since Star believes in All Might and All Might believes in Deku, they're going to help him get to the battle and to win the war. Hell yeah. It's crazy how this relatively minor character like Star, who really only appeared to be squashed by Shigaraki and make him look really strong, has had so much of an impact on the narrative, even after she's dead. And I just find the concept of these men who loved her like a little sister, fighting on in her memory for a country that isn't their own, so beautiful and heartwarming. I hope none of them get brutally killed. And their help gives him a massive speed boost to arrive just as Lemillion is unleashing his devastating new technique, Peachy Keen. I still think this is a top moment of the season. It's ridiculous on its own, but it's capped off by the fact that he's legitimately crying in fear and dread, and that also he's the last man standing doing this, and also that it actually works and buys time for Deku to kick him in the face. And yeah, this moment where Deku arrives and he lands that first blow and they make eye contact, oh, that's money. And the hit, it does some significant damage, and Shigaraki realizes that, oh great, Deku can use Fajin now, which triggers some of All For One's memories of the third user. And it's all epic and awesome, and it doesn't last long because then Deku notices that Bakugo's dead, and everybody else besides Lemillion's out of commission. And after a bit of taunting by Shiggy, he loses control of his quirks, which is exactly what Shigaraki wanted to begin with, to make him so angry, furious, and upset that he loses control like he did in their last fight, becoming feral and thus easy to dodge and defeat via a counterattack, with his plan being that he's going to snap his spine. Whew! And that's pretty metal. And I really liked being able to see inside Shigaraki for One's head in this section. Like, All For One's meant to be this massive tactical fighter. We see that in his current clash with Team Endeavor. But in this fight, their Metamorphosis version of them felt wild and unpredictable. So I like a mix of both. And so to see this plan laid out like it was is really cool. And so he keeps taunting him, trying to bait him into an attack, only for Lemillion to keep proving his worth to the team, convincing Deku that everything's going to be okay, that nobody's actually dead yet, and that even Bakugo is getting some extreme CPR, and thus they have to keep going. They can't let the villains make them falter or lose themselves, which in turn makes Deku reflect on the words of a bunch of his mentors. All Might, the fighter pilot from earlier, and then also the fifth user who taught him about controlling his power when he first learnt about Black Whip and the existence of other quirks. And thus, it allows him to regain control and power back up. And I gotta say, one, this shot with all the vestiges behind Deku, it goes so hard. And two, Lemillion is such a cool character. I like that he's pretty much unbeatable in a lot of ways in this fight, since Shigaraki has no access to his other quirks, and thus has to rely on his body instead, and can't hit him. And so this means that Lemillion gets to stay in the fight, and use his quirk and determination in different ways to help the team push forward, even if he himself can't really do damage. I also really love the brotherly type of bond that these two have forged since the Overhaul arc. It's really cute. And it's a role in his life that I feel like Deku didn't really have. He has lots of mentors, lots of friends, but this older brother role really only fits here. And I think it's so important to the overall story and to Deku's development, really. But yeah, the question on Deku's mind is whether Shigaraki is still in there at all. And so I guess this just goes to show that Deku has Batman levels of mental will. Because despite having potentially lost his childhood friend fighting this guy, he's still looking to see whether Shigaraki can be saved, can still be redeemed after everything is done. Now that's a hero right there. Shigaraki then tells him that poor little Shigaraki can't come to the phone right now, as he and All For One have melded into one person, Shigaraki for one, but All For One is the one in the driver's seat. So as I thought, it seems like the dude has split his consciousness and will transfer the rest of it once his battle with Endeavor reaches a conclusion. He intends to keep Shigaraki's body, and he wants to be the dominant will within it, the dominant personality. So he's pretty much raised Shigaraki from a young age to be his new flesh suit. In a lot of ways, this manga/anime, it's just a horror. All the stuff with All For One and Dr. Garaki is truly foul on so many levels. But I do think it gets masked by the fact that there's all these fun characters and colourful worlds and action. But the truth is, it's just messed up. I love it. And then Lemillion just keeps being the MVP of this whole battle. He gives Deku key info that Shigaraki is actually not fully melded with All For One. As before, he had a tantrum, like a little kid tantrum. It was caused by Lemillion telling him that he had no friends. And on top of that, the more he was hit with powerful attacks, the more mentally unstable he seemed to become. And then on top of that, Nana Shimura's vestige notices that her son's face is one of Shigaraki's finger arm things, which means that he's still in there somewhere. As if it was solely All For One in charge, he wouldn't care enough to have that face there. Instead, it seems like Shigaraki's subconscious is bleeding through. And then the real fight begins. Shigaraki for one rushes Deku, screaming that he doesn't care about him. He simply wants to take his brother back. Take back the vestige so that they can always be together, I suppose. And I would expect that one of his driving motivations of just wanting that quirk straight up, beyond the power, is his brother. Honestly, the power, I doubt it matters that much to him, because he's already S tier in terms of his raw strength. He can just keep making himself stronger. But having his brother with him for all time, the brother who he couldn't control, that's probably what he wants the most. And I kind of like that in the end he doesn't seem to give two shits about Deku. He's just in the way. It makes sense. I mean, he clearly dislikes the users that gave him the most trouble. I mean, he didn't like Nana, and so he used her grandson as some sort of revenge, yes, but I think that was more simply a tool to hurt All Might as well. He definitely hates All Might though because of what he did to him. He's probably also legitimately scared of All Might. And I think I would be too if somebody ripped off my face. And judging by his thoughts on the third user and also the second user, I think he fears and hates them as well. And I think he hates the second one most of all. Because beyond physical pain, I think they hurt his spirit. They're the ones that took his brother away after all. And I think the second was the leader of that, the resistance thing. And so their existence is tied up in his brother's rejection of him, which I think he finds painful and frightening, especially for a person who desires total control over everything and everyone. The second and third users are people that took it all away from him, and seeing their quirks is a reminder of what they did, and of their continued existence within Deku in the Vestige realm. But yes, the fight. Deku uses a Fujian Black Whip to smash Shigaraki, giving him time to activate the second user's quirk. And from here, he'll only have 5 minutes before he starts to lose power, so that's like 10 episodes in the world of anime. No problem. And he starts beating on Shigaraki so hard that Shigaraki's body breaks the sound barrier. Okay, so yeah. This is the quirk that fully makes Deku busted as all hell. It's probably necessary for when Shigaraki for one inevitably gets his quirks back again, because it would be pretty anticlimactic to not have him use any quirks in the final battle at all. But yeah, it's still a busted quirk. And also the animation for this section, the music, everything's just ridiculously good. It really elevates the episode and the whole battle. You love to see it. Like, what the hell? Why is this so awesome? The fights are going off. Not a single miss yet. Also the 120% Detroit smash, that whole section, cinema. And then we return to All For One's perspective on all of this. Last time he saw the quirk, it was pretty shit, honestly. Kind of lame quirk. So here, he's in shock that it's been juiced up to the max. And on top of that, in those flashbacks where he's clearly about to kill the second user, we see that he's crying. So yeah, I think he hates him most of all for the crime of stealing his brother. The fact that the second user materializes behind him in the Vestige world when the punch connects, just to mock him, it's just icing on the cake here. You love to see it. And in this brief break where Shigaraki's broken on the ground, the episode actually explains what the quirk properly does. It pretty much allows you to change the speed of an object and ignore physics, really. But this time with some extra juice. It works on a cellular level, so now Deku is just fully busted. He's just destroyed. You know, how can anyone compete? Even with a time limit, this quirk guarantees that you cannot lose, in my opinion. But I guess we'll see. And yeah, this fight's top tier. Just Deku whooping some serious ass while the second user talks shit to All For One. I love listening to Deku plan out the battle and use all the different quirks in perfect harmony to beat his ass. And also the voice acting for Deku, the deeper, rougher, sort of scary register, hell yeah. And then the heroic music, the internal monologues, the epic feel. Oh, feels like we're coming towards the end of the phase of this battle. Of course, Shigaraki will then ascend to his next form, as is anime tradition, but it's still been exciting. I feel like he needs to destroy the dome though and attack Eraser and Monoma, right? Otherwise, how's he meant to fight back realistically? He needs his quirks. And then Deku lands what seems to be a heavy blow, and now he needs to make a choice. The first user tells him that it's true that the two have not fully fused. The second user tells him to remember what Shimura told him, that sometimes people can't be saved and must be killed. But Deku remembers the second part of that conversation more, that he wants to save Tenko if he can. He doesn't want to kill him unless there's no other choice. And whilst all that's going on, All For One / Shigaraki has his own internal monologue, realizing that he's losing badly. And there are certain elements preventing him from being able to contest this battle, namely the Quirk cancellers and the coffin in the sky. So yeah, I very much expect he's gonna power up again, and use this power to destroy the dome and attack Eraser and Monoma. I mean, no chance he doesn't, right? Otherwise, surely he'll just straight up lose and there isn't really much story potential. And then we finish off the episode with a look at the next phase of All For One's plan, with Spinner versus Shoji. Which, yeah, it's perhaps not two characters that are hugely plot relevant, but regardless, it's kind of exciting to get a more B-level fight. I'm curious to see where they go with this. And so, yeah, with all that being said, that's the end of the episode, and these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of the episode? You like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.